all the cool things that people are saying about this car are true. It is probably the coolest car that Volvo has made to date. As CarAndDriver.com so cleverly put it, the 2016 Volvo XC90 is refreshingly un-German and a new standard of luxury that is very Swedish. Now, Volvo is renowned for safety, and this car has more safety features than any other car I've ever been in. It's also paired with some really cool stuff that you might think are unsafe. For example, the giant panoramic sliding sunroof. Well, Volvo showed a training video to our guys here at the dealership, and they rolled a car about 6 times. The sunroof didn't even shatter. It was that impressively constructed. There are a lot of safety features that come standard on these cars. There's airbags on every pillar from the front all the way to the back. The blind spot indication system that started in the XC90 in 2009, which Volvo made then available to the world, much like the seatbelts in 1959. And a clever little badge on each seatbelt buckle that says since 1959. That's a great little touch. There's an airbag for the driver knees, a gyroscope that's taking aerospace technology, part of the rollover protection system, and auto-hold braking for when you let off the brake pedal before you hit the accelerator. Some other great features that come standard are the all-wheel drive, the heated seats, the third row seating, rear climate control, sliding rear seats, and a really giant sunroof. I mean, this thing is incredibly big. So being an SUV, it's got 9.3 inches of ground clearance. With the airbag suspension system, it's actually adjustable. The curb weight is 4,394 pounds, so it's just over 2 tons. But the great thing about this car is that it looks like a big car, it feels like a big car, but it doesn't drive like a big car. I hate to say peppy or zippy, but it really accelerated with ease, having a supercharger and a turbocharger alongside the 6-cylinder engine, or even with the 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, which makes over 300 horsepower.
Isn't that cool? It doesn't feel like an SUV.
It doesn't. Now the hybrid, which comes out in December, has an 80 horsepower electric motor. I can't wait to get my hands on that. It's rated at 400 horsepower, 472 foot-pounds, and is getting something like 53 and up miles per gallon. Now the Drive E engine that we had is stickered anywhere between 16 and 20 in the city and up to 30-ish on the highway. On our test drive, we were getting somewhere around mid-20s. So the blind spot indication system has this nice little flashing red indicator on either mirror that'll tell you when a car is nearby, and I was surprised it wasn't annoying, it wasn't too subtle like some American cars, and it wasn't too big, so it worked quite well. It's got some giant rims on it. I think they're 19 inches, and they come in some really styling options. One of my favorite features are the front LED headlights. They call it Thor's hammer for the daylight running lamps. Well, you can see why. And a bunch of really bright LEDs, which are expected to have a much longer life than halogen bulbs. One thing I noticed right away is that there's a camera in the grille. Turns out that it's part of the 360-degree view. It looks kind of weird, but I could see how in a few years it'll be perfected to look wonderful with an extra couple cameras around. The front of this car is just absolutely beautiful. As a vintage guy, I immediately noticed the homage to the P1800 with the large wide opening grille. A lot of the cars are taking similar shapes. From a distance, you might mistake this car for being an Audi, but maybe only if you forgot your glasses. The interior of this car is just excellent. I have been in a lot of newer cars and they all feel cheap. This one has a lot of quality. It's got real wood. It has a Bowers & Wilkins stereo, which is unbelievable, and makes buying this car worth it just on its own. The Momentum package does not have the Bowers & Wilkins, but it also does have the standard wood trim. It comes in a gloss and a matte finish. This one has a wooden steering wheel, and it has seats that are equally comfortable, but not as many adjustment options as the Inscription package, which you can adjust the underknee portion of the seat, lumbar, which has, I think, 11 adjustment options for underneath the knees like an older BMW, even the side bolstering. The sunroof is huge and panoramic. It's always covered by this mesh, which is about as dark as it will get, but it doesn't really seem to be a problem. I think Volvo engineers knew what they were doing in terms of how hot the car will get, especially in the Southwest with the sunny days we have. One of my favorite accenting touches is the little Swedish flag on the seats. Back seats look roomy, almost individual bucket seats, each with their own rails, which is a great little convenience that you can adjust your rear leg room. Center console is nice, comes with a few cup holders, plenty of space for your daily junk, and a really great feel to all of these buttons, including a knob that you twist to start and stop the engine instead of just a push button. Drive mode's really cool. Parking brake and auto hold. On the steering wheel, I noticed that there are a lot of buttons, and the center console has a very clever display, which is basically modeled off of an iPad. The only thing that I've seen like it is a Tesla, which is basically a miniature television. I noticed right away that the gauge cluster and the center console were all digital. There are very few actual buttons around. The touchscreen's also really nice. You don't have to press too hard like you do with the Lincolns, and it's designed with Apple to allow you to use it with gloves, which we tested and it worked out beautifully. LED cabin lights, Volvo on-call button. Removing the frame on the mirror is a beautiful little touch. It makes it seem light, almost floating. A great feel to the door handles and buttons. Easy folding seats with folding headrests. There are speakers on the ceiling in the back, which gives it a much better surround sound stereo feel. Has automatic lifting and lowering rear hatch. Cup holders in the rear. A lot of room when you fold those third row seats down. And importantly, a very safe feeling in the back. Basically, all the passengers are equally protected in this car, which is a really great thing. Great little safety feature for when your hood is open. It actually tells you to pull over safely. Underneath the hood, we have a very typical new engine look. It's covered in plastic and it has clearly labeled service ports for common things. The battery is clearly labeled and the engine is hidden behind a big cover. It's going to take a while for you to learn how to actually use all these features because it is kind of overwhelming. You have several pages with buttons full of settings that you can change, adjust. Even while driving, it was hard for me to use the climate control and make changes to it without taking my eyes off the road for any amount of time. Granted, it was a test drive, and if I had the car, it probably would take a day or two just to learn all that. One of the coolest things about this car is the airbag feature that allows you to change the driving for economy, dynamic sport, off-road driving, and just general comfort. It adjusts the front and rear one step at a time. Between the highest and lowest settings, it feels something like 2 to 4 inches of difference. The amber leather is my favorite of the 3 options. So when I was holding 50 miles an hour, my fuel economy was steadily between 30 and 35 miles per gallon. It would peak up to 40, especially when I went to lighter throttle, and that was pretty level ground. Of course, the T6 is going to be a thirstier engine than the 4-cylinder. Of course, the 4-cylinder makes plenty of power, and it feels a lot like a 6 to 8-cylinder engine with the turbocharger-supercharger combination. Another really cool feature I noticed was a heads-up display that came on all the models. It displays the speed limit that's posted in your area according to the GPS and your current speed. It's adjustable, and it does not need a special section of the glass on the windshield like it did with the earlier cars, since I haven't seen that since the old 240 SX was out. A great thing about the center console is the USB and the auxiliary jack, so you don't have to have long cables coming out from the front of the radio. I was surprised to learn that there actually is not a CD player option on the car, so all of the music will either have to be through the radio, satellite radio, or your auxiliary/USB ports. So this car basically takes all the cool little features I like in other cars and puts them into one. Adjustable ride height, the side window screens, the giant sunroof, big touchscreen to replace all the buttons, a 4-cylinder engine that gets decent fuel economy, but the car does feel really tall. The important thing is that it doesn't handle like a tall car or perform like one. The gauges are also really responsive. There doesn't feel to be much of a delay in the screen, so it's got a pretty good refresh rate. So I'm happy to say that this is probably the best car I've ever test driven. It drives phenomenally, it handles excellently, it looks beautiful, and it feels great. Just the feel of the plastic everywhere. Even the underside of the dashboard has like a 1/4 inch thick foam and hard plastic, which gives it a very high quality feeling to it. Who knows, in a couple years maybe I'll have enough money to finally buy one. Expect your payments for this car to be somewhere between $700 to $1,000, because after all, the base price is $49,000 and it can go up to somewhere around $60,000 with the hybrid option. If you haven't had a chance already, test drive this car. It's really cool, it's very nice, it's inspiring, and as Volvo likes to say, power does not have to corrupt. Thank you for watching, and happy motoring.
Hey Jeff, do you have any scruples about me seeing how much power this makes?
No.
Okay. Now I'm not going to be...
That's the whole point of this, is driving it.
Are you buckled in?
Not yet. Should I be? I guess I should be.